Hey students, I'm down here. I wanted to give you a little intro video for the week here on Monday to kind of recap what we looked at on Thursday and bridge that over into this week. And I'm going to keep all of these up here in this corner. This is the week 2 video intro. And so week 2, again, we started thinking about first our content. We always start in our content. And we think about that content as it leads to its pedagogical representation. How do we artistically and creatively engage students in learning that content? There's no separation. The content and the pedagogy are one and the same. And after we've considered content and then the emergent pedagogy, we can then consider that emergent technology, but not before. We never ever start with technology. So how do we prepare for a classroom that's focused on learning? How do we engage that learning first, technology second mentality? What are students doing in your classroom in order to learn? This all feeds into the major project you're doing right now. What does learning look like in your classroom? What is the role of the teacher and the role of the student? Now, one thing we can do is we can look at Bloom's taxonomy and consider, before we look at technology, we are considering that Bloom's taxonomic look at the different verbs. And here it is. You're familiar with this. You've seen this before so many times. But then we consider the lower, which is apply, understand, and remember, and the higher, create, evaluate, and analyze. Now, these are all important, but where do we tend to be? Down at the bottom. Schools tend to focus so much on this remember and understand that they never get up to the top. What if we consider technology? If we shift, if we say, okay, what are the actions? How do we take these verbs and we digitize them? And here's some examples of what you might see. Understanding might be journaling and tweeting. Analyzing might be using digital concept maps to mind map or linking. And then you might even get into creating, where students are blogging and they're filming and they're podcasting. That's at the top. Now, you need these things at the bottom, but the idea is that you integrate them in a meaningful way. And we can do that with the digital tools at our disposal, the free tools that we have at our disposal. Another way to look at it might be like this. And I'm going to provide you with these infographics because I think they're useful for you in thinking about your classroom. If you want them to remember something, what are those things that you can do with a digital tool? If you want them to create, what are those things you can do with a digital tool? But again, it's not the tool itself. You're starting with the learning. We can use that taxonomy to kind of evaluate and assess the use of those tools. Yeah, you might be having them write notes in Microsoft Word, but what is that ultimate purpose? Are they using digital tools for learning, or is that memorization and remembering? Let's consider the use of Kahoot. Think of Kahoot. Where does that fall on the Bloom's taxonomic pyramid? Is Kahoot at the create, or is Kahoot at the remember? Or is Kahoot somewhere way below? Last week, we looked at TPACK and we looked at SAMR, and I asked you to create a couple of, or actually one together, an infographic. And I wanted to share a couple of examples from other graduate students and what they created here and how they visualized these different frameworks through infographic programs. So you've got this one, it's the multicolored, you've got the connections, you've got the strengths and the weaknesses of both. And then up here, something similar as well. They also looked at Apple Classrooms of tomorrow, but that itself is very outdated, so we no longer really dive into that. Coming back here to our focal point, we start with our content of mathematics and language arts and science and social studies. We consider that environment. We look at the idea of being student-centered, dialogic, critical. We have cultural considerations, multicultural mindsets. We think about those learning theories. This is all undergirded by our philosophy of education. Then we can dive into TPACK. Then we can dive into SAMR. You can't start necessarily with those. It should all be emergent from that content, that pedagogy. Then we put on those glasses and we say, my TPACK glasses or my SAMR glasses. And we think about the most meaningful ways to apply and to integrate digital tools in the classroom. And that's where we come to this week. We're going to dive into meaningful learning, and we're going to investigate our background philosophies and learning theories. We're going to share the learning environments that we're working on right now, And we're going to apply TPACK and SAMR to existing examples of lessons in your classroom. So bring with you some lessons that you might want to try and engage and enhance and extend. Bring an activity that you run or even a project that isn't digital yet, but that could be. And let's take a look at that and let's see what we can do with it using TPACK and SAMR. Sure, everybody, that you are reading the articles, that you're watching the video that I'm sharing with you. Make sure you've created your digital resume, and then make sure you're also working on your digital expression of your learning environment. In fact, I wanted to share just a couple of examples with you. I've got a couple of these that other students have made in the past. So here's one where they use Prezi, and they talk about their role as the teacher, addressing their goals. They look at some expectations from the student and the teacher perspective. Another example of Prezi, and there's a lot of templates that you might use, or you can create your own. And so this one's, this is Ms. Francis's from 2024 when they graduate, what to expect. And so you see this one's fairly text heavy. And the idea, of course, is that perhaps you include or utilize maybe more digital means. Here's another example that I've shared with you. Here is a use of Canva where they've embedded a video, and you can actually...
Hi everyone.
So they've embedded a video, and they also have these different aspects. See how they've organized and orchestrated the way that this handout, it's a digital handout, may be received by parents and students at home. So you have your articles, you have your videos, and you've got your tasks to be working on. If you have any questions, please email me. I look forward to seeing you at 5:30 on Thursday night. Everybody, have a fantastic week. I'll talk to you soon.